Imagine waking up to the absolute worst luck possible, reincarnating into a guaranteed ruin, ending as a villainous noble with a trash personality, constantly getting trampled on by your own ugly-ass family. Our guy swore he'd get his revenge someday, dreaming of surrounding himself with the ultimate sadistic heroines to build a wicked harem. But let's cut to the present, in the dark, creepy corridors of the Marquis Vawado's residence. Two maids are walking the night shift, absolutely terrified because they hear groans and the sound of something being struck echoing from the basement dungeon. One maid tries to scare the other, joking about the ghosts of former prisoners since the mansion used to be a fortress, before brushing it off as just the personal maid of the third son doing her usual night duties. And oh boy, those duties are wild. Down in the dungeon, we find our main character, Rice Valador, chained to the wall shirtless, getting whipped by his own busty, heavy-banged maid. You'd think he's suffering, but nah, bro is fully embracing his freak-ass nature with a crazy masochistic grin, taunting her like, "Kaya ya! Did you think this level of pain could make me submit? What's wrong? Getting scared? Hit me harder." The flustered maid blushes and goes, Then, as you wish," before swinging that whip with all her might. Smack! She accidentally whips him straight in the noggin. Rice lets out the most pathetic, goofy yelp ever, "Hoo-ah!" which completely weirds out the maid. But that literal blunt force head trauma just triggered a factory reset on his soul. Suddenly, a flood of memories from his past life rushes in. He remembers holding a controller, grinding a game called Holy of Fantasy. The shock of the whip makes him realize he didn't just reincarnate into any random world. He was reborn into the very game he used to play. And out of all the overpowered characters he could have become, he ended up as Rice Valador, the prime example of a throwaway, trash-tier villain who is mathematically guaranteed to be absolutely destroyed by the protagonists in every single game route. As the maid awkwardly stands there, sweating, asking, Are you all right, Lord Rice?" After hearing his pathetic livestock squeal, Rice just drops his head and starts laughing like an absolute maniac. "Am I all right? Far from being all right," he thinks to himself with dead, soulless eyes, realizing that on top of being totally doomed, this man Rice Valador is a complete degenerate. Bro is absolutely cooked, and this is just the beginning of his cursed new life. While still chained to the wall, his body is literally tingling with excitement because, apparently, the original Rice was a die-hard masochistic noble who considered this the absolute best feeling ever. But, thanks to that blunt force reset, our boy's actual consciousness kicks in with a massive wave of post-whip clarity. He immediately cringes into another dimension, thinking about how he just regained his past life memories right in the middle of a hardcore S&M session, and now he just wants to crawl into a hole and cease to exist. He awkwardly yells at the maid to stop and forget the whole acting thing, finally getting released from his kinky bondage. Sitting alone in his room later, he actually has the audacity to think, "Man, I feel bad for that maid. Maybe I could have enjoyed it a bit more," before snapping back to reality. If he had to reincarnate into the world of Holy of Fantasy, why did it have to be as Rice Valador? He clearly remembers the first time Rice shows up in the game, a completely unhinged, one-armed fallen noble who picks a fight with the protagonist out of nowhere, screaming about being mocked by a filthy commoner just because the MC offered him a hand. And Rice's fate in the game? Absolute garbage. In one route, he challenges the MC and gets brutally clapped. In another, he tries to lay a finger on a heroine and gets instantly unalived. And in the worst route, he literally sells his soul to demons for a power-up and still takes the L. No matter the route, bro is destined for the graveyard, and to top it off, he's a massive freak who gets excited by the abuse. Just as he's about to despair, he looks down and realizes something huge. He still has both of his arms. In the game, Rice started as a one-armed broke loser, but right now, our guy is fully intact and living in a luxurious mansion. He frantically grabs a pen and starts aggressively lore dumping onto a piece of paper, realizing that it's currently exactly 1 year before the game's official storyline begins. Within this next year, according to the game's lore, he is supposed to get his arm violently chomped off by a giant wolf monster, triggering the absolute downfall of his family. Why? Well, the Valador family was appointed by the nation to govern their town and act as a literal meat shield defensive line against the Forest of Atrocities, a dungeon-like hellscape packed with vicious monsters kept in check by a sage's barrier. The nation sent them fat stacks of cash to maintain an army for when monsters inevitably spill out. But Rice's dad is a tremendously corrupt scumbag who embezzled all the defense funds to line his own pockets instead of paying the troops. Because of this greedy boomer, the soldiers' morale tanked, their gear sucked, and when a massive monster stampede finally broke out from the forest, the town's defenses folded like wet paper. The monsters absolutely ravaged the territory, grabbing everyone in sight. And the damage spread so far that the nation finally realized Rice's dad was cooking the books, leading to the family getting stripped of their noble title entirely. Meanwhile, the original Rice was stuck in a hospital bed, screaming at a doctor to fix his missing arm, only to be hit with the "you're broke and not a noble anymore, buddy" reality check, which eventually drove his fragile ego to make a deal with demons, commit mass murder, and get killed by the heroes anyway. Realizing the sheer scale of the disaster heading his way, our boy smirks. The fact that he regained his memories right now, while his arms are still attached and his family still has power, means he has exactly 1 year to fix his dad's colossal screw-up, save his own limbs, and somehow avoid every single death flag this cursed world has to offer. Figuring out how to survive this mess, Rice comes up with the ultimate big brain gamer move. Just pack his bags and dip to enter a survival route. He sneaks to his door, planning to leave the mansion and ditch the town entirely before the monster stampede ever hits. But just as he grabs the handle, a terrifying, hyper-realistic memory of his scumbag dad flashes before his eyes, screaming that he's forbidden from acting freely or ever leaving the town. Snapping back to reality in an empty hallway, Rice realizes the grim truth of his vessel's past. For 14 long years, the original Rice was basically a prisoner, utterly despised by his family and completely trapped. Since running away is off the table, Plan B is to warn the town. But obviously, frantically running up to a guard and screaming about an impending monster apocalypse when nothing has happened for 100 years just makes him look like a total nutjob. With no one believing him and the ruling Valador family completely lacking any sense of crisis, Rice is at his wits' end. Seeking some fresh air, he looks out his window at the sprawling, peaceful town of Valador. It's a huge, bustling place, and he remembers that several beloved ally characters from the game actually lived here. The tragic part? In the game, players only ever visit this town after it's been reduced to a smoldering crater, and those characters always look so heartbroken talking about the home they lost. Gripping the balcony, our boy's gamer pride kicks into overdrive. If he can't run, and he can't rely on these useless NPCs, he's just going to have to solo the entire monster stampede himself. Sure, the original Rice was a total weakling who gassed out of mana instantly because he never actually bothered to train, but he did possess a rare, high-tier aptitude for spatial magic. Realizing he can use his past life knowledge of min-maxing and grinding characters to max stats, Rice gets completely fired up, swearing to train properly, break the system, and make whoever reincarnated him into this trash-tier villain seriously regret it. However, his newfound grind set hits a massive roadblock a few days later, when he's summoned to the dining hall to face his absolute nightmare blunt rotation of a family. Sitting around the table are the stuck-up legal wife, his ugly bloated eldest brother Life, his smug second brother Legal, and his terrifying father, Lord Louvre. Rice is standing in this house is literally rock bottom. He's the illegitimate child of his dad and a maid, and his biological mother was straight up murdered by the legal wife right after he was born. The only reason he wasn't tossed in a river is because of some local superstition that killing your own kid curses the family. Standing there sweating bullets surrounded by people who violently despise his very existence, his dad glares at him with dead eyes and drops a massive bomb. "I hear you've been studying magic lately? Looks like our guy's secret training arc just got horribly exposed." The dad completely flips his lid, slamming his massive fist on the table so hard it literally knocks Rice backward, screaming that magic is a prestigious power reserved strictly for true nobles, and a filthy bastard like him has absolutely no right to even try learning it. Lord Louv coldly orders him to shut up and only do what he's told, making Rice realize internally that it's no wonder the original Rice turned out so insanely twisted with a family like this. But our boy knows exactly how to play the game, so he puts on an Oscar-worthy performance, desperately begging for permission to study magic so he can fight like a noble instead of just wildly swinging a weapon like a lowly soldier. Naturally, his trash-tier brothers take the bait and jump right in to mock him, laughing at the idea that a little magic could ever make him a real noble, before the bloated eldest brother, Life, smugly suggests a brilliant idea to finally put Rice in his place. Lord Louv loves the suggestion and officially commands Rice to train in swordsmanship alongside the commoner soldiers starting tomorrow, hoping the humiliation will break him. Rice fakes a massive tantrum, screaming that he refuses to do sword training, but before he can even finish his sentence, his dad violently backhands him straight across the room. Rice crashes to the floor, holding his stinging face, while Life waddles over and literally steps his heavy boot right on Rice's head, gloating that he should be grateful for the opportunity. Rice is internally seething, hilariously noting that he really wouldn't mind being stepped on if it were a cute anime girl, but getting trampled by this ugly fat bastard is an absolute violation of his rights. Still playing his pathetic role to the absolute limit, Rice grovels on the floor, begging his dad to at least assign him a renowned, high-ranking knight as an instructor instead of some random commoner. Lord Louv maliciously grins and agrees, but with a nasty little twist. He assigns Rice to Zangle Dread, a disgraced former knight who now trains the family's basic infantry corps. The brothers burst out laughing, absolutely praising their dad's cruelty for pairing a half-breed with a washed-up commoner, telling Rice he should be thrilled. Rice grinds his teeth, muttering a frustrated, "Damn it," while his horrible family gloats over his misery. But the absolute second he looks down, a massive, wicked grin spreads across Rice's face. Got him. Mission absolutely accomplished. His true goal from the very beginning was to get trained by Zangle, because he knows from the game's lore that Zangle has ridiculously high teaching stats and is the perfect mentor. Knowing that his deeply twisted family literally gets off on denying him whatever he wants, Rice just pulled the ultimate reverse psychology manipulation tactic. He intentionally paraded that magic guidebook around right in front of them, knowing they'd violently ban him from magic and force him into swordsmanship with the exact guy he wanted to meet all along. Bro isn't just surviving. He is out here playing 4D chess with these bozos. Even though he's literally getting his face crushed into the floorboards by his bloated brother's boot, Rice is internally doing backflips because his 200 IQ reverse psychology baited these bozos perfectly. Securing Zangle as his swordsmanship instructor, he's practically holding back a victory dance while his dad demands words of gratitude for his generosity. Playing the pathetic victim to the very end, Rice lets out a fake yelp as his brother steps down harder, while his smug brother Legal laughs, telling him he can finally become a proper commoner now. Gritting his teeth, Rice forces out a "thank you very much," but inside, his revenge arc is officially locked in. He swears on his life that he's gonna make this trash-tier family cry and pay them back 1,000 times over for all this disrespect. And what's his ultimate motivation for this insane grind? Surviving the monster stampede, avoiding his doomed death route, outsmarting his idiotic family? Well, yeah, but mainly it's so he can reach his ultimate happy ending, which in his gloriously degenerate mind consists of getting stepped on by a massive harem of insanely busty dominatrix anime girls. Bro's priorities are completely unhinged, but hey, whatever fuels the gains. Still, despite his newfound resolve, he can't shake off the anxiety of the looming apocalypse. Fast forward 2 weeks, our boy is dripping in sweat, getting ready to hit the training grounds, when a cute maid awkwardly interrupts him. He tells her to make it quick, but what she says next completely halts his momentum. She suggests he reschedule his training because Lady Reem has just arrived. Rice hits a complete mental blue screen. "That Reem?" he yells, completely startling the poor maid, who confirms that, yes, it's his fiancée, Lady Reem. Rice slaps a hand over his mouth, realizing he's been so hyper-focused on surviving the forest of atrocities that he completely forgot about the other massive death flag walking right up to his front door. He knows the name Reem all too well. In the game's lore, Reem isn't just his fiancée. She eventually joins the protagonist's party and is literally the exact person who ruthlessly slices him down in the future. Remembering a flash of her screaming about defeating him with her own hands, Rice sweats bullets, thinking about how absolutely savage this woman must be to brutally unalive her own ex-fiancé. And the absolute worst part? This boss-level threat isn't years away. She is literally in his town, casually window shopping for dresses, and completely within striking distance right now. The sheer terror of facing his future executioner hits Rice like a truck. In the game, Reem Straight is practically the face of the franchise, a brilliant, composed strategist supporting the protagonist, and an absolute unit in combat who ranks among the most popular characters in the entire series. The fact that the future wife who will someday become his sworn enemy has finally arrived sends a shiver down his spine. Trying to play it cool, he asks Zangel, the Valador Corps commander, what he thinks about the situation. Zangel mentions that the Straight family is renowned for their military prestige, and rumors say Lady Reem is highly skilled herself, so he suggests it might be a fine idea for her to observe Rice's training. Rice immediately sees the strategic value in this. Having her watch him train could actually be an excellent idea to change her impression of him, so he turns back to the shaking maid. "You there, could you come inform me again when she arrives? I want to personally greet Reem," he says smoothly. He even adds a polite, "Thank you, letting me know helped," which completely short-circuits the poor maid's brain. She frantically bows, stuttering apologies for overstepping before scurrying off. As she leaves, Rice sighs, noting her stiff, fearful expression. Ever since he regained his past life memories, he's been actively trying to repair his relationships with the staff. But people's impressions don't change overnight. After all, the original Rice was a legendary masochistic weirdo who intentionally gave the maids unreasonable demands just to indulge his bizarre fantasy of being scolded and ordered around by them. No wonder they're terrified of a sudden personality shift. Shaking off the cringe, Rice and Zangel hit the training yard. It's been 2 weeks since his family punished him with this training, and under Zangel's guidance, Rice has been relentlessly grinding combat skills. He specifically chose daggers as his weapon because they were heavily favored in the game's meta. During a fierce sparring session, Zangel swings his heavy practice sword with terrifying speed. Rice tries to deflect a head-on strike, but the sheer weight of the blow throws him off balance. "Ooh," Rice grunts, barely dodging as he quickly pivots, aiming to get behind Zangel for a counterattack. "All right, I got behind him. With this," Rice thinks. But before he can even blink, Zangel has already predicted his movement, spinning around and bringing the blade down right at Rice's neck. Rice frantically blocks the strike at the very last second, completely winded, muttering, "That was close." Zangel smiles approvingly, complimenting Rice's improved skills for managing to stop that attack. Rice modestly credits his excellent instructor, to which Zangel flatly replies that flattery won't work on him. But Rice isn't just sucking up, he genuinely means it. He knows the game mechanics inside and out. In the game, training under someone with the instructor skill greatly multiplies stat gains, but the effect heavily depends on the NPC's hidden skill level. Zangel isn't just some random guard. His instructor skill is completely maxed out. Having a secret max-level mentor stationed right in this doomed city is the ultimate cheat code, and Rice is absolutely milking every single drop of EXP he can get before the apocalypse hits. Flashback to the day after Rice regained his memories. He marched straight up to Zangel and bluntly demanded to be trained in swordsmanship. Zangel, who had served nobles for years and personally witnessed the disgusting corruption of aristocrats, naturally tried to brush off the request of a notoriously useless youngest son. A few days later, Rice came back, his face completely beaten, bruised, and covered in bandages, holding out his family's official permission slip. Zangel was stunned. He asked Rice why he went to such extreme lengths, enduring what was clearly a brutal beating, just to get training. Rice, looking dead serious, simply replied, "I don't want to die." Unrolling a map, Rice pointed directly at the forest of atrocities and warned Zangle that if a monster stampede were to happen right now, this entire town would be completely annihilated. Rice looked Zangle right in the eyes and asked, "Can you give me enough strength to survive?" Zangle, deeply moved by the sudden maturity and resolve of this supposed trash noble, immediately apologized for his prior judgment. He swore on his honor as an instructor to fulfill his duty with everything he had, declaring that he wouldn't hold back starting tomorrow. Since that day, Rice has been exploiting the game's mechanics to the absolute limit. He equipped every item that gave hidden stat bonuses and even forced Zangle to say the exact same starting phrase used in the game's tutorial just to squeeze out any extra hidden buffs. At first, Rice almost despaired because the EXP gains didn't feel as crazy as the game, but he quickly realized that Zangle's relentless, unyielding combat training, combined with intense stamina running and magical power control exercises, were actually skyrocketing his abilities faster than any game mechanic could. Back in the present spar, Rice realizes that Zangle's movements have zero wasted effort, exactly what you'd expect from a former Royal Knight. Despite Rice's boosted stats and superior dagger agility, Zangle effortlessly deflects every single rapid strike, forcing Rice into a desperate defensive dodge. Realizing he can't win with just speed, Rice decides to risk it all, throwing himself directly at Zangle with everything he's got. "I can throw myself at you, and that is exactly why. I can take your strike head on," Rice shouts, miraculously blocking Zangle's heavy downward slash with a perfectly timed crossguard of his daggers. Zangle is completely taken aback, staggering slightly from the unexpected impact. Rice pants heavily, joking, "What's wrong, Zangle? Did my flattery actually work after all? Weren't you the one who told me to fight seriously from the start?" Zangle quickly composes himself and apologizes, but before they can continue, the cute maid from earlier comes running out, announcing that Lady Reem has officially arrived and is waiting at the mansion. Rice immediately sheathes his daggers, completely ignoring the maid's nervous suggestion that he should probably change out of his sweaty, dirt-covered training clothes before meeting his noble fiancée. He confidently tells her it's fine, even though he can practically feel her scornful gaze burning a hole into the back of his head, assuming he's just indulging his gross masochistic kink of being looked down upon by women. But Rice actually has a brilliant, completely unhinged plan. He's purposefully showing up looking like absolute trash because he needs Lady Reem to hate him so much that she breaks off the engagement right here, right now, saving him from his future death flag. He is literally speedrunning a breakup to save his own life. Stepping into that room, Rice knows he is walking a terrifying tightrope, because he absolutely needs Reem to break up with him right here and now. If he accidentally rizzes up his ex-fiancée and they actually get along, the event where she joins the protagonist's party later will completely disappear. And without her carrying the squad as their top-tier strategist, the world will inevitably fall into the Demon King's hands, which is a way worse game over than some local monster stampede. So, even though Reem was his absolute favorite waifu in his past life, he has no choice but to make her deeply despise him. He flashes back to how the original Rice used to treat her, literally harassing her, calling her rustic, and unapologetically groping her unnecessarily massive chest while telling her it was her only redeeming feature. Current Rice violently cringes just remembering it, realizing his modern morals physically won't allow him to act like that much of a shameless degenerate anymore. But showing up to a formal meeting dripping in sweat and prioritizing his training over her, that's the perfect level of disrespect to trigger the breakup. Pumping himself up to be the bad guy, he throws open the door and completely freezes. Sitting there is Lady Reem, and without a screen between them, her 4K real-life beauty is absolutely blinding. She gives him a stunningly polite smile, thanking him for taking the time to see her. Rice tries to play it cool, asking if she had any trouble getting here, to which she smoothly replies, "They used a warp stone." But our boy's gamer brain is working on overdrive. He recognizes that exact smile from the game. It's a smile meant exclusively for the protagonist, meaning, right now, there is absolutely zero genuine emotion behind it when she looks at him. Rice is fighting the hardest battle of his life, trying not to violently simp, his mind flashing back to her legendary swimsuit scenes from the game, completely overwhelmed by the fact that she's standing right in front of him. Because he's having a full-blown internal crisis, he just ends up staring blankly at her. Reem starts looking incredibly uncomfortable, visibly trembling and desperately holding back her absolute disgust, clearly thinking this scumbag is about to sexually harass her again. Rice snaps out of it, realizing he looks like a total creep, but then thinks, wait, this is perfect. That look of utter trash-tier disgust is exactly what I need. Trying to secure the bad ending, he steps forward and dramatically says, "There's something I want you to do, Reem," praying she glares at him with pure hatred. But instead of a slap to the face, the room is suddenly filled with the loud, rumbling growl of her stomach. Reem turns bright red, squeaking out an embarrassed, it's nothing, as she tries to hide her face. Rice suddenly remembers a crucial piece of lore. Reem isn't just a genius strategist, she's also a massive glutton. Seeing an opportunity to be a jerk, he smoothly asks the maid to bring the meal he prepared in advance. Reem is shocked he went out of his way for her, but Rice totally fumbles the bad boy act by saying, "It's fine, don't worry. If you collapsed from hunger, that would be more trouble." The maid rolls out a basket filled with massive, perfectly toasted hot dogs, and Reem's eyes absolutely sparkle. She asks, "Lord Rice? Truly?" And the moment he gives her the green light, she starts absolutely demolishing that glizzy with the most adorable, blissed-out expression ever. Yeah, Rice's master plan to make her hate him is completely falling apart right before his eyes. Trying to play the role of a gross, inconsiderate scumbag, Rice proudly announces that the hot dog she's absolutely devouring is actually made of steamed monster meat, specifically chosen because it's rich in protein for his post-training gains. He fully expects her to gag, because what kind of refined noble lady wants to eat goblin glizzies? But, to his absolute shock, not only is she not disgusted, she completely finishes it, licks her lips, and adorably asks for another serving. Rice is totally dumbfounded, telling her to eat as much as she likes, before Reem suddenly zeroes in on something he said. "What kind of training?" she asks, looking at his sweaty, disheveled state. Rice casually admits it's just normal combat training, proudly pointing out that's the reason he's dressed like a peasant and smells like a locker room. This is it, the ultimate gross-out moment. But instead of glaring at him with the pure, unadulterated disgust he desperately needs, Reem suddenly blushes crimson, panics, and starts frantically waving her hands, stuttering that it's nothing. Rice is completely lost, internally screaming, because even though acting like a smelly meathead was part of the plan, seeing his favorite waifu blush directly at him is making his gamer heart race. Reem suddenly sniffs the air and awkwardly admits, I do smell, don't I?" before completely pivoting her attitude. Instead of breaking off the engagement and running for the hills, she calmly declares that she will accompany him to his training, promising to have even more food prepared for him. Bro's breakup speedrun just violently backfired, and he accidentally unlocked her supportive waifu route. Meanwhile, back at the training grounds, the soldiers are running drills while Commander Zangle watches on, deep in thought. He remembers when Rice first showed up, wondering what kind of joke the third useless son was playing. But after witnessing Rice's explosive, borderline impossible growth over just 2 weeks, Zangle realizes the kid's talent is 100% genuine, even if Rice is secretly just exploiting the game's EXP mechanics by being near main characters. Resolving to respond to Rice's dedication with equal seriousness, Zangle is interrupted by his vice commander, Garing, who brings a grim report. Monsters have actively leaked from the Forest of Atrocities. Luckily, it was just a few goblins that some random adventurers took care of, but it proves the barrier is failing. When Garing casually insults Rice, Zangle immediately snaps at him to show respect, proving just how much Rice has won him over. But the real issue is Rice's scumbag dad, Lord Louvre. Garing reports that Louvre's only response to the monster leak was basically, handle it yourselves, and no, you aren't getting any budget. The troops are completely demoralized, equipment is breaking, and soldiers are talking about quitting to protect their families. Garing looks at Zangle and asks the million-dollar question, why does a highly valued former royal knight stay in this literal dumpster fire of a military corps? Zangle sighs, admitting he's thought about quitting plenty of times, but he has a debt to pay. Flashback to the former head of the family, Lord Lothril, on his deathbed. Lothril was the man who pulled Zangel out of the mud as a commoner and made him a knight. With his dying breath, Lothril begged Zangel to take care of his son, Louvre. But when Zangel returned from the Night Order, he found that Louvre had become a massive, irredeemable degenerate who ignored the family teachings to party with corrupt nobles. Zangel had stayed all these years for the sake of his men, but his patience was literally at its absolute limit until that fateful day when a bruised, battered Rice kicked open his door and demanded to be trained. Snapping back to the present, Zangel cracks a genuine smile. Gehring asks if something good happened, but Zangel just brushes it off. Internally, however, as he watches Rice walk up to the training yard with the beautiful Lady Riem dutifully trailing behind him, Zangel thinks the unthinkable. If this supposedly useless boy were to become the rightful heir of the Valador family, maybe, just maybe, he could actually be the one to save this doomed territory.